Okay, it's 1 o'clock. Oh, it's 1:01. Welcome, everybody, to the Veteran and Military Affairs Committee. I am Chair Marks, and I welcome everybody here. I'm glad we have speakers because we have some really good bills on the agenda that will make a difference in our veterans and military affairs soldiers' lives. And so I hand it over to Chair Nolan, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Senator Marks. I'm excited to be here today, always trying to do work to help our veterans. I'm so glad to see that we have a few people to stand up and speak and advocate for the things that we're trying to do. And I welcome you here, and I can't wait to dig in and go through what we're here to go through. Thank you so much.
Okay, 1 minute. I just have to get on the Zoom. Oh, you can tell me. Okay, Senator Kelly is up first. Senator Kevin Kelly, the floor is yours, sir.
Good afternoon, Senator Marks, Representative Nolan, Senator Gordon, and Representative Vail, and all esteemed members of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Senate Bill 344, an act concerning certain federal veterans benefits and income eligibility determinations for certain public assistance programs. This bill seeks to remove barriers to public assistance programs for veterans. The proposal would exclude all federal veteran benefits from income eligibility determinations for certain public assistance programs, such as the state Medicare Savings Program, medical assistance, and energy or fuel assistance programs. Our veterans and their loved ones have sacrificed so much to serve our country, defend our freedoms, and protect our way of life. What they earned in benefits from their time in service must not be counted against them or prevent them from obtaining assistance when they are in need. Veterans are strong. They understand hardship and resiliency. Their experiences also can put them more at risk for future hardship. Homelessness, mental health issues, and obstacles in finding a role in the civilian workforce are serious problems among veterans that can lead a veteran and their family falling on hard times. If a veteran and their family finds themselves struggling financially to pay for something like fuel or to obtain medical care, they must not be excluded from eligibility from the existing state assistance program simply because their veteran benefits are counted as income. The benefits veterans do get as a result of their selfless service must never be a barrier to assistance when a veteran is struggling. I thank the committee for raising this bill and for your leadership and for allowing me the opportunity to come before you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. So just a couple of questions. You've been here. I'm a freshman. You've been here a lot longer than I have. Hasn't it been the charge from the leadership to keep our elders at home, to age at home, and not to be in nursing homes? And wouldn't this bill help with that?
Most definitely. It's for a while now when our state government decided that money follows the person when it comes to the public assistance program, declared the legislative policy, and I think it's a right policy, that it's better to age in place at home than it is to go to a skilled facility, and that we get better health outcomes when individuals do get to age in place. The issue here, and also as another benefit of that, is that to the state budget, home care is about a third of the cost to the general fund than institutional skilled care. And when individuals apply for public assistance benefits, they're required to also at the same time apply for VA benefits. So while their income would normally qualify when you add in this, not only the aid and attendance, but also the VA pension benefit, it often disqualifies an individual. So what this would do is it helps somebody to age in place, but it also saves the taxpayers money.
And when you say the V, I just think a lot of people don't understand. If you've served over 20 years as in the military, then you start getting a pension, which is a pension from the Department of Defense, the DoD pension. But we're talking about here is a VA DVA pension, and it's for those that are low income, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I know that you've championed this bill for many years, right? Want to tell us a little history of your trying to get this bill over the finish line?
Sure. As I've looked at this bill for years. I hate to admit how many, but it's been a long time, 8, 9, maybe 10 years now, looking to change this. Also in my career outside this legislative gig, I'm an elder law attorney who deals with many of these families and sees firsthand how something as simple as this added income becomes a barrier. And the thing here is you got to look at veterans. They served our country. They love this country. They believe in this country. So when our government tells them that, oh, you're ineligible, they accept that and walk away. And so many people who are in need don't get the benefits they deserve when, in fact, there are ways that we can help them. And this is one, that if they get these pension benefits, it's excluded. And then they'll get the care, whether it's the MSP program that helps pay a Medicare premium, energy and fuel assistance to heat their home, or in the case of Medicaid, to be able to get the health care that in many instances keeps them vibrant, independent, with dignity in the community. And after all, that's what we want to do. I don't know what exactly all states do. I know that Connecticut lags behind, and that this is something that we would want to do to catch up. It's something that I think these veterans would not only benefit from, but it's something I think they so deservedly need.
Yeah, I think I read there were only 5 states that count it towards income, when the federal government actually precludes any type of medical reimbursement towards income. So, our DSS counts it towards income, but yet you're not paying, when you pay your taxes, you're not counting it as income.
Right.
So I thank you so much. Any?
Thank you.
Okay. Roxanne?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
This is my 6th year as the ranking member of this committee, and I remember you testifying my very first year on this issue, and I found it kind of hard to believe that we did count that. And there was a state agency, I forget which one, that kind of said we didn't need this bill. Do you remember? Was it DSS maybe?
DSS is the agency that administers the MSP and the Medicaid program. It's probably the agency that said we don't need to do this.
Yeah, but I don't think they really gave us any facts. And I know, I don't think, or I remember Representative McCarty also being a big advocate of this, and that's when I became aware of it. And every year, we sit here and we do anything, and I don't think you get much resistance from this committee by any means. And I don't think you'll get any. We're going to pass this out of committee. We got to figure out what we need to do to get it called. Hopefully Senator Marks can get it called on the Senate floor, because it dies somewhere in the process, but it doesn't die in this committee. And so I appreciate your efforts and making me aware of it when it first started, and your continued support for this. But anything we can do to help move this forward, it's just common sense and doing the right thing. So I appreciate your testimony, and maybe we can maybe you could do something upstairs to kind of push it through, and then we'll do our part on our end down in the lower chamber.
Well, we'll certainly do what we can upstairs. Where I think it usually falls down is in the short-sightedness of, I'm going to say, the fiscal budget process, in the sense that this would be an appropriation that you're going to allow a veteran extra income. But what it doesn't evaluate is that by enabling a veteran to get these added benefits, they're going to have better health outcomes. So we're going to reduce ultimately the cost on as from a Medicaid appropriation from long-term care and even chronic care. Because if you can get preventative health care, guess what? You have better health outcomes. So this is a typical example of being penny wise and pound foolish. But I think when it comes to our veterans, we owe it to them to go above and beyond, just like they did for our country, to go above and beyond to make sure that we get this right. Because as Senator Marks indicated, most of the individuals using this and would qualify under this bill are struggling financially. They don't have the resources to maintain their health care and to be able to remain in their community. This would enable them to get the benefits they deserve. So it's really a good thing for veterans, but it's also a good thing for the Connecticut taxpayers because it's going to reduce the amount of admissions to skilled facilities, which is the most expensive Medicaid dollar that's appropriated by the state of Connecticut.
And again, just a few days ago, we had a public hearing in aging, which you testified, and there's a lot of overlap between these two things and that people could do better, you know, in their home with that type. It will save the state a lot of money. They'll be getting that family care. So this kind of overlaps with that same conversation. Just seems like common sense to me. So hopefully we can get there this year. And again, thank you for your continued support.
Thank you.
Any other VMA members want to speak? Okay, thank you. Oh, Rep. Nolan.
One, thank you for Senator Kelly for coming before us and speaking your passion in regards to this bill. I, along with numerous others, since I've been here, I know have had that discussion and we have a lot of champions for this bill. And we're just so glad that you came and stood out for it. It is definitely something that we want to make sure that we help alleviate our veterans in this area. It does not, to me, and to many of us, make sense that, you know, they be charged to their finances be charged different. That would help in a way that it would take money from them than give them some, because the benefits that they should be getting, they have to usually take out of their retirement and savings to help them. So I'm glad that you came before us to talk about it. And I just encourage people to continue to come out and speak and advocate in regards to this. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And also thank you for your leadership in bringing this bill forward and offering me the opportunity this afternoon to speak on its behalf.
And I think Rep. McCarty and Senator Formica, who preceded me, they started this bill. They championed this. You reminded me of that, Rep. Vail, because of Mr. D'Agostino, who lived in Waterford, and actually his daughter is going to testify remotely today. And he is on the Wall of Honor in our hall. So hopefully the 20th district can get this over the finish line this year. So well, I guess your district too.
Certainly hope so.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Yep, have a great day. Next we have is Representative Fonsello here. Hi, Representative.
Oh, that's okay. No, waiting for you. Thank you. Good afternoon, co-chairs Marks and Nolan, ranking members Gordon and Vail, and distinguished members of the Committee on Veterans and Military Affairs. Thank you for raising House Bill 5402, which excludes certain benefits payments from veterans' income calculations for a public hearing and allowing me to submit testimony in support of this very important bill. For years, I've advocated for many of the exclusions that appear in this bill, and I applaud you for moving it forward. I'm a veteran, and I meet with veterans throughout my district. If I see them wearing a baseball cap, which indicates their service, I stop and I chat with them. They love Connecticut. They want to continue to live here. However, many feel that it's expensive to do so and that the state isn't doing enough to thank these veterans for their service and to encourage them to stay here. They provide me with examples of other states that do provide benefits for their veterans. When these veterans' benefits are included in income calculations, the numbers may put them in an income category that makes them ineligible for benefits provided by the state or the municipalities. 5402 goes a long way towards correcting the problem. It does show our current and future veterans that we care for them, we thank them for their service, and for the sacrifices they made for our country. I urge you to favorably pass this bill out of committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Representative. Do you know how your bill is different than 344 that Senator Kelly just testified on?
Not familiar with that. This bill, again, I'm in favor of this particular bill. I didn't draft the bill, but I could see the benefits that will accrue to the veterans by, again, excluding the income. And as I read it and I thought about the conversations I've had with several of them, think for a minute about the veteran's disability. All right, it's not a pension. It's not regular old income. They were injured in some way, shape, or form, some part of the body, which isn't 100% anymore. And the government, federal government, is making good to them for their loss. So it seems almost to be penalizing them if we charge what they're being given as compensation, we charge it as income, they're going to lose out on other benefits. That just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very similar. They're both very similar. And so we'll definitely make sure we get one of them out and across the finish line.
Thank you.
We'll certainly try hard. Anybody, Rep. Nolan? Okay. Okay, Rep. Fail?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Representative.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Veterans Committee. Have you talked to any vets in your district on how this would benefit them?
I talk to them everywhere I see them, first of all. I see them at the American Legion meetings. I see them at the local VFWs. And I meet some of them in the grocery store, to be honest. Anywhere I see them, I talk. How will it benefit them? Again, they find it expensive to live here in Connecticut. And if they can get additional benefits by not being penalized for benefits they've gotten from the federal government, they're all in favor of that.
Okay, and I think this is similar to the other bill. I think this one's even more expansive, if I'm correct. I think along those same lines that, this is something we need to look into. Maybe we can find if there's some type of major, and it's not always bad to have a Senate bill and a House bill that are similar to, because, things can get clogged up in the process. So certainly appreciate your advocacy, Representative, and we'll continue to work on this.
Yeah, thank you. There is some testimony from Attorney Weir in our from the Connecticut Legal Funds that she does state what the difference is. I read it last night. I can't remember now. So, but we do have some testimony. Okay, and we have more questions for you. Go right ahead. Representative, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Representative.
Good
How are you?
afternoon.
First of all, I just want to commend your persistence on this issue. I remember it was probably about maybe 10 days ago, a little bit longer. We had a pretty extensive caucus meeting where we all met for quite a few hours on a whole number of different pieces of legislation, different issues, and it was just a very exhaustive day. And I remember I went home to my recliner that doubles backs as my bed. Lately, I've been falling asleep a lot in that recliner. And I remember I'm in that recliner. It's about 9:30 at night. I look at the phone and I see you're calling, and you were calling specifically to lobby and advocate for this issue. And made sure that we do not forget about our veterans, those who have disability benefits. I'm just so troubled. And I want to make sure I absolutely have this right. A veteran's disability benefit, like you said, a veteran, somebody who was harmed either physically or mentally in some way, in some capacity,
Right.
that has suffered immensely, gets a disability benefit from our federal government.
Mhm.
And then the state of Connecticut, under current law, taxes that benefit. Am I understanding that right?
That's essentially what it is. It's penalizing them for getting the benefit from the federal government.
Okay, and I know the precursor to 5402, a bill that you introduced, would exempt that veterans disability benefit from state income tax. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right.
If you know, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, 5402, do you know if your concept, what you've been working so very, very hard on, if that has been baked into 5402?
I see it in 5402, so I support this bill.
That's a very helpful representative. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I truly appreciate it. And we can, as you've very eloquently said to me, we cannot forget about those who have never forgotten about us. So thank you again. Very much appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Senator Chigarella? No? Okay. Anybody else? Anybody online? Okay, thank you so much, Representative.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Representative Haynes, oh, hi.
Good afternoon. Chairwoman Marks, Chairman Nolan, Representing members, Rep. Vale, and Senator Gordon, thank you so much for having us here today. What I would like to do is yield my time to Veteran and Master Sergeant William Like. He's here to discuss with you the act concerning military training and experience of the driver's license endorsement to operate fire apparatus, raised bill 5404.
Hi, good afternoon. I appreciate the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee raising House Bill 5404, an act concerning military training and experience and the driver's license endorsement to operate fire apparatus. As a veteran, current National Guard soldier and volunteer certified firefighter and EMT, I'd like to express my support for the bill. However, I would also like to add some comments for some additional details. I'd like to express that I am not representing any of my employers at any level of government. I am here as a private citizen. Any opinions are solely my own. My name is William Like. I am from Griswold. And although the bill addresses a very small portion of people that I know in the military, it addresses firefighters that are in the military and actually actively serving as military firefighters. It doesn't express the totality of the training that firefighters and other service members in the military have to go through to get qualified on various vehicles. I did submit a written testimony, which is a lot more in detail, but basically when we do military training, we go through a process of classroom environment where we're dealing with truck safety, inspections. We go from there, we go to like road terrain and things like that. We talk about all the same processes and things like that that we would normally do. And then we go into an exterior location where we do a skills test, where we provide evidence to our instructors that we know how to do proper safety checks, that we know how to use the vehicle and equipment, and then we take a road test and show that we can prove how to drive. Essentially, that becomes a military driver's license after a commander says, I've reviewed your training and I've talked to you. I believe you should be able to drive this piece of equipment, and then you get issued a military driver's license. The types of vehicles that we have are comparable to civilian equipped vehicles such as the tractor trailer trucks and large box trucks and flatbeds that you see on the roads every day. Essentially, we're driving the same types of vehicles, if not heavier and much more encumbered. And the equivalent to a fire truck is a CDL Class B. There is a process right now for a military service member or someone who has recently left the military to convert their military driver's license to a CDL in the state of Connecticut, utilizing this application for a military skills test waiver, which is under the authority of Article 136 Uniform Code of Military Justice or Title 10 of U.S. Code 1044A. Essentially, this application allows a service member to apply for a waiver to not have to do a skills test, but they still would have to go through a knowledge test to attain a CDL. Using a CDL, you can go to a fire department and ask a chief and the training process to operate a fire truck. The other way you can operate a fire truck is if you have a Q endorsement on your personal license. Currently, there's no process for a military service member to use a certification such as this to essentially, I'm asking that the language be put in there to allow a similar process to get a Q using military driver's license. Thank you for your time.
Yep, and thank you for your testimony. Rep Fail?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Representative Haynes. So I'm just going to break this down real quick, so make sure I'm understanding. So you're in the military, you have the equivalent of a CDL, and the state provides you, and so I assume that the training is equal or greater than what the state requirement would be.
Yes, sir.
And because of that, you can fill out that form you showed us to transfer your whatever distinction would have in the military. I don't know if they call it a CDL or not, to be able to get a CDL in Connecticut. Is that correct? A Class B CDL in Connecticut.
It would allow us to get a waiver for the skills test. So it would be basically, it would cover the training and then the
Yes.
skills test, but you'd still have to go to do the state written test.
The written test, but you
Correct, sir.
wouldn't be required to take a course,
Correct.
at a New England tractor trailer or something like that to get your Class B,
Correct, sir.
because you have the adequate experience and they've determined that that is equal to what the requirement would be to get a CDL. Now, and so that already exists.
Yes, sir.
So what you're saying is now this Q endorsement, can you explain to me what a Q endorsement is?
So a Q endorsement is intended to, it's not a CDL. It's a lower level, lower class. It goes on your private license and it authorizes you to operate a fire apparatus. It does not say you can go jump in a truck and drive. It says you're authorized. You have to get trained and then certified by a department chief and said, you are now authorized and you are endorsed to drive this specific truck.
So you could have both a CDL and a Q endorsement and be able to do both?
I believe
sure,
so.
right?
You wouldn't need it, sir.
Yeah.
If you have a CDL.
If
would
you have
not
a
need
CDL, you wouldn't need the Q endorsement. So like you said, so the Q endorsement. So in that same regard, you have had the equal to or greater than training in the military that should suffice. Is there a written test with the Q endorsement?
No, sir.
So it would just be the experience that you would be able to get, and the chief signs off on that you had that experience.
The chief would accept a Q endorsement
Yeah.
and then say, okay, now let me train you
Okay.
on my truck.
All right. So
before
I
you
just
can
want,
drive.
so basically, so now we're looking to add a form like you have for the CDL it's basically the same thing. It's already in place. So we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just another way to look at it. That's probably just been an oversight. It's not something anyone's brought to our attention before. And sounds good to me. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Rep. Delaney and then Rep. Leno.
Afternoon, Master Sergeant. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, sir.
I just have a comment and a quick question. First is a comment as a fellow NCO myself. I just wanted to thank you for your bravery and for your testimony. My question is and the MOS is 13J, right? For fire control specialist?
I'm not specific on the exact one, but that sounds about right. It's a specialized engineer.
Roger that, Master Sergeant. For the MOS's qualifications, after you get to AIT, and then you're going from your E5s to your E6, E6 to E7, is there recertification processes at all for your fire specialist MOS, the core competencies for there?
I am not a fire specialist. I'm a logistician, so I don't know the specifics of their MOS. However, all of our MOSs have past AIT. You have successive levels of leadership training to go through. As far as equipment operation, once you're qualified on a piece of equipment, whatever type of truck it is, you have to do sustainment training, or what we call a check ride, to keep your certification current. And also, every new commander that comes in, you have to do a new commander's interview, and they have to approve that, hey, I know you've got the training, I see you have experience, I'm good for you to drive my trucks.
Well, as a holder of the 46 Sierra MOS, I couldn't agree more with the spirit of this legislation, and I want to thank you for coming up to testify on behalf of your soldiers, Master Sergeant.
Thanks, sir.
Cool.
Oh,
Okay, Rep. Leno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, thank you for being here. Master Sergeant Like, very nice to see you again.
you too, sir.
Welcome to Hufford. Just again, for the record, what's your current rank in the military and what branch?
Master Sergeant in the Army National Guard,
And how many years have you served in the Army National Guard?
17.
How many years of fire service do you have?
I started in the fire service in 2003.
And that's exclusively civilian fire service. right?
Correct. Volunteer specifically.
Can you please tell me what military certifications you have as far as being able to operate vehicles?
Sure. So of the vehicles in this type of class that are similar to a fire truck, I am currently certified to drive an MTV, which is a medium tactical vehicle. It's essentially it's a 3-axle vehicle with either a flatbed or some sort of box on the back, but it's usually up armored and heavy. I give you a picture you can show around, but it's essentially the same size and shape roughly as a traditional fire truck.
Great, thank you. And again, you were kind enough in your written testimony, which I have, which you submitted. So it's essentially the MTV is this type of apparatus here. And which is, this is a pretty good size apparatus to me. This looks similar to, if not even more intense than a fire truck, a ladder truck, a water truck. Let me ask you this, sir, Master Sergeant. In the military, do you to have the MTV or the LMTV or the M915, which is this one, any of these here, do you have to be in a military fire department or be in require you to drive a military fire truck in order to have one of these?
The only one you'd have to drive a military fire truck is, there's a picture on there, the last one. All the other ones are non-fire trucks. They're cargo movers, or haulers, or other specialized equipment on the back. So it's not fire department related or specific.
Okay, so for an MTV,
Mhm.
which you have, sir, you do not have to be in the military fire department in order to have an MTV.
Correct.
Let's talk about Connecticut. The Connecticut CDL requirements.
Mhm.
if me, as somebody who was never in the military, not a veteran, has none of these certifications, I'm required to do two things, and correct me if I'm wrong. You have to take a skills test, which is essentially a road test, correct?
You'd have to do a training course, and get authorized to do the skills test, which is, safety checks and also the actual road test driving. Correct.
That's the first component.
That's the first part.
Then there's a Connecticut knowledge test.
Correct.
That's the second part.
Correct.
Now, you, sir, who has a CDL, you, sir, who has an MTV military certification. If you wanted to go for your CDL, current law dictates that you would be exempt from the skills road test, that first component that we just described that you answered. You would be exempt from that because be able to get a waiver because you have this qualification, the MTV, correct?
As long as I meet all the requirements on this form, my commander could sign off and approve me, for the waiver.
So again, this
those
waiver
different
here,
things.
which is a two-part form, it requires you and your commanding officer to sign off on this.
Correct.
You would be exempt from the skills test or the road test under the CDL.
Correct.
Okay. Now, a Q endorsement, and Representative Vale already asked the question, you gave some information on that. For the Q endorsement, which essentially would be a step towards getting you into a fire truck and be able to drive a fire truck or fire apparatus, you would only, to get that Q endorsement from the state, you're required to only take the skills test or road test, which is the first component of the CDL, correct?
Correct. After attending a Q course, you would then be eligible to take the state Q road test.
Okay.
Which is the same as the CDL. It's the exact same test.
That's where I'm going. So the CDL skills or road test and the Q skills or road test, and that process is identical for a CDL and a Q.
Yes, sir.
Exactly the same.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so where I'm just trying to understand this, so the Q endorsement, that's a lower classification than a CDL.
Correct.
Okay, so in the skills test, which is exactly the same for a CDL and a Q endorsement, if you're going for the CDL, you're completely exempt, or pending you get this waiver filled out by yourself and the commanding officer, and you meet this criteria. If you have this, which you have, you're exempt under the CDL.
Correct. And then I have to take the test.
Right, but for the Q endorsement, it's silent as far as being exempt from the same exact skills test.
Correct. I would have to go through a Q course and then do a skills test.
Okay. So to me, if all it requires is to pass the road test, the skills test, and you can show the MTV and you have that waiver and you have the certification for the MTV, you should get that Q endorsement in an instant.
I agree.
Listen,
I agree.
and the law is quite silent on that currently.
Correct.
Okay. How long, now this, in your case, the MTV, how long are military certifications of these kind on this list good for once you go into veteran status?
Once you have transitioned out of the military, as it states on the very header of the application, it's a 12-month period.
For 12 months?
For 12 months after you've transitioned out.
Okay, and sometimes you're waiting around for quite some time to be able to take a Q course, for somebody to have to go through the course and go through that component that we talked about.
Correct.
Can actually exceed 12 months.
Potentially, yes, sir.
It would seem that now, so our military who may be even transitioning into veteran status, that may want to go into fire service, either in the paid capacity or even do it in a volunteer capacity. By them having to wait around like this, to take this course, this can actually hurt recruitment, number one, on the fire side, right? With the fire departments, does that hurt recruitment and retention of firefighters?
Absolutely. If this was added as a benefit, it would actually improve our chances of recruiting skilled, competent drivers for our fire departments, which are already hurting with numbers.
Okay, so again, if you get the Q, once you get the Q endorsement and the current, getting that, do you automatically jump right in the fire truck and
No.
start driving it?
No, you have to present the credentials to the chief or the training officer and go through the training program on each specific apparatus. Once you've done the training, you'd have to show to the chief or the chief's designee that you're competent and fully capable of functioning and operating that piece of apparatus. And then the chief would say, you're good to drive, you are authorized to drive this truck. And then you'd probably be starting on another truck because each truck is different. They have different abilities, capabilities, and equipment.
Okay, so, once you get that Q endorsement, once you go see the chief, which in your case is the gentleman over your right shoulder, my
Correct.
left. Will this legislation and what we're trying to accomplish here, will that in any way, take away or handicap that part of the process?
If we can make the queue equivalency, that would not handicap the process at all. It would actually improve the process and make it so that the chiefs can move people along quicker to get them in the trucks and driving trucks, because we can have a lot of firefighters, but if we don't have a truck to get them there, we can't do anything.
Got it. And so do you have, there's has been some concerns that I've heard that this somehow will take away authority from the chiefs, from the individual local departments to decide who they want to put in their truck. Do you have any comment on that?
I would say the exact opposite. It would give them a better group of people that they can choose from. But still, you can't just jump in the truck. You have to get certified and qualified by the training program within each department on that specific truck before you're even endorsed by the chief to operate that vehicle. So there is no loss of ability or authority. What it does is actually improves the chief's ability.
Very good. I appreciate that. I guess one final question, then I'll close. In the current language, what we have drafted here, is again, it's talking about the person who has to be able to have a waiver, for the Q endorsement. You have to show that you were in a military fire department.
Correct.
And again, the MTV, which would give you which you get the waiver for the skills test, which is required for a Q endorsement. If you have this and to have the MTV, you're not necessarily in a military fire department.
Correct.
But again, definitely gives you the ability to be waived from a skills test as it relates to a CDL, and it's also exactly mirrors what a Q skills test looks like.
Correct.
Okay, Master Sergeant, thank you so much, number one, for your service to our country, our state, and our town, for your years of volunteer service, also standing up for us abroad and right here at home. So it's an honor having you and hosting you today, and your testimony has been invaluable. Thank you very much. Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Madam
Rep
Chair.
Pulis? Oh, Heffernan, I'm sorry. Hi, yep, Rep Heffernan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Master Sergeant. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you, sir.
You got 20 years in the fire service?
About that, sir.
I just retired with about 30. So I'm one of your people. I don't have any problem with you guys getting a Q endorsement. I think it's a great idea. I just want to qualify that where it says to operate a fire apparatus, as you've touched upon, we know that these are highly specialized vehicles, a pumper, ladder truck. And the Q endorsement that we're talking about granting you is more just for driving the vehicle. And when we say operate in the fire service, it's a much broader term, so you would have to be qualified on, say, the pumper and know how to use the pump and where all the equipment is and things of that nature. Same thing with a ladder truck, you know, how to fly the aerial. And, you know, good operator knows every piece of equipment on there, what it does. So that those are highly skilled spots. So when we talk about the Q endorsement, I just wanted to just qualify that, you know, as you mentioned, that's just for the driving part. It doesn't affect your skills as a pump operator or an aerial operator or that type of thing.
Correct. Essentially, you could look at it as the queue opens the door to you being able to drive and also operate those vehicles.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, sir.
Any other members? Okay, Rep. Hayes, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as a municipal leader, it's very difficult for us to populate our volunteer fire departments as well as our career. And if there are people out there that are qualified, somewhat qualified, ahead of what the other people that are coming to us in regards to a position, and we can help our military in putting them in positions where they can help towns out, this is a one step to do that. And I appreciate that anything you guys can do to push this bill forward and make this a good thing to have. It will help our municipalities as well. So I just wanted to put that in there. Thank you.
Do you know, Rep. Haynes, has this been in front of VMA before?
Has this been in front of this committee before?
Yeah, or has it been proposed before? Do you know?
I can't speak to that. Maybe Representative Lanu knows.
No. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I
All
don't
right.
know.
I learned a lot. That's why I love public hearings. You learn so much. So thank you
you.
both for being here. And next we have Representative Rick Hayes.
Thank you for looking at the time this afternoon.
Fire chief of the Griswold Fire Department. I've been a member of the fire department for 40 years, and I've rose through the ranks to be chief for the last 11 years. With that, I'm a training officer. As the chief, we make sure that things run correctly, and this bill will only help to bring volunteers with the military that are involved in towns to help to keep us afloat, because we're having such a hard time to keep our volunteers. This is one step that will get them to begin the qualifications of being a certified driver on the fire apparatus. It doesn't automatically give them the right to get behind the wheel and drive down the road and say, I can do this. It gives us the ability as fire officers, as fire chiefs, to actually allow them to start the process of training on the fire apparatus. We're having a hard time now with the volunteers. It's not just volunteers, it's paid people. The paid firefighters aren't able to, if they don't have a queue, they're not even thought about. We have people who are in the military who have this license, but are unable to obtain or even get into a class where they can come in and learn the queue aspect of driving a truck. They have to either go for a CDL or a queue, and sometimes the classes are far and few between to get these people qualified. So I ask that we try to take this into consideration, that it's another help for the volunteer services.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Anybody to my right? Okay, but maybe not too many questions this time.
Well, I will do what we can. But this is certainly very important to our firefighters who rise to the occasion every single day and save our lives and respond when we need them the very most. And, you know, as I said in the district, this gentleman here actually saved my life one time. Chief Holowati has, from anaphylactic shock during my first campaign. So, sir, for personally, thank you. It's an honor to host you today. So I want to put that on the record. Sir, in addition to being a fire chief, and over 41 year, a veteran of the fire department in Griswold. You also wear another hat, and that's a state certified Q instructor. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you just take us sort of through the process of what it would require, say for me, as a civilian with no military experience, what it would take for me to get a Q endorsement?
So the way we work it is you would have to take a class. I offered a class last year in which I only had 3 participants. Of the 3 participants, only 2 were able to go through the complete aspect of the class, as one was under the age of 21 years old. But you would take the class. That's usually over a course of 2 weekends. There is some knowledge tests that you have to take, some quizzes and that kind of thing. But you are then taken out to a vehicle. We have the vehicle of our choice, and you go through the knowledge portion of that truck. You have to know everything about that truck. That's called the pre-trip when you take the Q endorsement. The Q endorsement, then after the pre-trip, you can start beginning the driving aspect of it. The driving aspect of it is just a road skill test, which is really just some maneuvering back and forth through some cones, like for a serpentine type test, before you're actually even able to take the vehicle out onto the road. We have some decent sized roads. I don't put anybody on a rural road in the town of Griswold until they know at least the aspects of driving that truck down the road. It's not like driving your personal vehicle down the road. Even if you have a little larger vehicle, an SUV or something like that, people aren't aware of how heavy these vehicles are. That's the big thing that you have to remember. After we get them going down the road and they can drive proficiently on what I consider state highways, state roads, which are wider roads, then we'll start taking them down to rural roads. Rural roads, you have to go much slower. You have to give much more room for the other vehicles as they're passing by you. That's just getting them to testing. Once they get tested, there's no help. We put them in front. I usually will bring in someone different other than myself who have trained these people. I'll bring in a third party just to test them, take them down the road, make sure they're able to do it. And that just gives them the Q endorsement for their license. In order to drive the piece of apparatus to an emergency incident, now they have to go through hours of training, understanding how to pump the truck. If it has an aerial piece, understanding the aerial piece. If it's a rescue vehicle, understanding all the equipment that's on that vehicle, just in order to get qualified to be able to take it to an incident. And our people are always watched. Anytime somebody does something, drives a little bit too fast, maybe they rolled through a stop sign, a stoplight, they didn't do it exactly the way they're supposed to do it, we'll do more training with them. It's constant training, it's constant watching, no matter what qualifications you have for a driver's license.
Chief, if somebody in the state of Connecticut has a CDL, do they have to go through the Q endorsement?
No.
Okay. Also, I think you heard in the prior testimony, in Connecticut, you need to take a skills test and then you have to take a Connecticut knowledge written exam knowledge test. If you have military certifications, such as the diagram we held up, the like the MTV endorsement, this one right here, you're essentially exempt from a CDL skills test. Now, again, I'm going to ask you the same question, and I think it's important. The skills test for a Q endorsement and a skills test for the CDL endorsement, is that the same exact skills test?
To the best of my knowledge, it is.
It replicates exactly.
Absolutely.
And you can also speak to that as a not only a fire chief, but as a Q instructor.
Correct.
Okay, so it would seem like common sense knowledge would be that if you've got the MTV endorsement in the military and you're exempt from that skills test, under what's required for a Q endorsement, you should be able to get the Q endorsement on your license in an instant.
Absolutely.
And again, to operate on MTV and have that, or CDL, to have the CDL, doesn't necessarily, or an MTV or a CDL, either one of those, in Connecticut, doesn't necessarily mean that you're certified to drive a fire truck right away, correct?
Absolutely not. It
Um,
means you need more testing and more training.
and that's when I come see Chief Holowati,
Yes,
the fire chief, or any other respective chief in the state.
correct.
Okay. Sir, again, I'm going to ask you probably the same question. There's been some concern that this is going to affect the discretion or the authority of local fire chiefs, local departments from determining who they want to put in their fire trucks, who they want to have to drive their trucks. Do you think this is going to in any way harm individual fire departments?
I don't believe it'll harm any fire departments. Again, it is discretion of the chief or chief officers or their designee on who can actually perform the duties of operating a piece of fire apparatus.
So the Q endorsement component to this doesn't affect this other component at all. It's two
No.
separate components here.
Correct.
Okay, and I guess my only, I'll ask again, in closing, my only other concern, again, is the language that's currently as drafted here in the bill. It's requiring that an active duty armed forces member or veteran has to be a member of a military fire department and hold a military license to operate a fire apparatus. Do you think that's going too far? Are you comfortable, again, as somebody who's a 2Q instructor and a fire chief, that if they have these respective certifications, that's adequate for the 2Q endorsement?
I think it limits the number of people that are in the military who may want to volunteer in a fire service, who are not firefighters. Again, to be a firefighter in the state of Connecticut, to be able to help people to go into burning buildings, you have to be certified as a firefighter. But people that are in the military that are not in the firefighting aspect of the military may have that license to drive the MTVs, but they're not in the firefighting side of it. So now they would not be eligible with the way that's drafted.
Okay, so well, you recommend we tweak this language a little bit,
Absolutely.
to make sure that, essentially, if you have these type of certifications, that are in the military, that there's automatic reciprocity, and don't, again, I'm asking as a fire chief and a TQ instructor, if somebody comes to you and has one of these certifications, are you comfortable enough with them having the Q endorsement and then coming to you as Chief Holowati to get further training and certification to drive a fire truck?
Absolutely.
Chief, an absolute honor to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Your testimony was invaluable, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, thank you, Representative. Rep. Vale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Chief. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you if there was any relation to legendary baseball coach Bill Holowati.
We do not know.
Okay, all right.
I've never met the man.
He's from Eastern Connecticut too, so I thought maybe. Okay, thank you.
I do just have one question, Chief. Do you know what other states do? I mean, are we one of a handful that don't give the reciprocity for this license?
I'm unsure of that.
You're unsure of that. Okay. Anybody else? All right. We appreciate you very much. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
taking the time. Representative Perillo? Is he here?
Senator, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Representative Nolan, Representative Vale, Senator Gordon, thank you for your time and thanks for the opportunity to testify on raised bill number 345, an act concerning the period of the Korean conflict and the wartime service property tax exemption. I know you have a full schedule. I don't want to speak for too long, but this was a request that came to me from a constituent, and this is a constituent, and it's so funny, you know, things seem small, but something's always important to somebody, and this is something I had never thought of, but there are a number of individuals in our state who served our country during the Korean conflict, but that are excluded because of how we define wartime in our statutes. They're excluded from the local property tax exemption. And in this case, I'll tell you why. So by definition, the Korean conflict ended in 1953. But that's actually not when the active engagement of our troops ended. For a number of years, be it through Operation Glory, the North Korean Restructuring Agency, our troops were on the ground and present through 1957. And in fact, even until 1958, the American armed forces had nuclear weapons on the ground in Korea, armed and guarded and protected and manned by U.S. troops. Our statutes right now end the ability to gain that property tax exemption at the local level to those who served through 1953. This bill would extend that eligibility to those who served in Korea through 1957, December 31st, in fact. And the goal, of course, is to make sure that all those who gave their service to the country during that conflict are eligible for the benefit. We just want to make sure that everybody's treated fairly. That's the purpose of this. I now know more about the Korean conflict in doing my research than I ever had before. But I'm happy to entertain any questions, you know, the committee may have.
Rep. Vale?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Representative Perillo.
Good afternoon, sir.
So this, and I learned more about it too, and we discussed it briefly. I'm sure you know more about it than I. And this is in reference to counting it for a property tax exemption. Is there, to me, I feel like if it's something that we should do, we should look across doing that for all things. I don't know what your opinion would be on that. I mean, you either served in that time period. I'd rather not piecemeal it. I'd rather, if it affects other things in addition to property tax exemptions, I'd like to look into that further, but I just wondered what your opinion would be on that.
Yeah, I mean, you could examine it from that perspective in terms of making individuals eligible for other benefits. Quite honestly, if you wanted to go even further, you could look at expanding eligibility for different wars based upon service. You know, there was still active troop involvement in the years following World War II. There was active troop involvement during the Cold War. Where do you draw the line? Quite honestly, I'm not equipped to answer that question. I think you're asking a very valid question. I wanted, for the purposes of this bill, to keep things tight. Quite honestly, I didn't want to ask for too much, and I thought this was a good place to start.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to muddy the waters of the intent of this bill by any means, but if we're going to acknowledge that service, to me, it should be acknowledged across everything. So I appreciate it, and thank you for submitting this.
No, thank you.
Hello, Representative. As far as the bill goes, do you know that if these benefits would be extended to the widows or widowers of the veterans who served during those years?
There would be no change in current eligibility as it pertains to spouses, widows, widowers. This bill, as it exists right before you, simply the change in the bill only relates to the definition of service in time of war and only very specifically to the Korean conflict. So there would be no expansion or contraction from current statute as it pertains to spouses.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
You
Madam.
got it.
Okay, Representative, we appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, Senator.
I am adding 2 people now. Number 6 will be Christopher Arnold from the Department of Defense, and then 7 will be Eileen DiGaetano. Okay, Mr.
Madam Chair, thank you, Chairman Nolan and Rep. Conley for bringing forth House Bill 5403. The Department of Defense is grateful for the opportunity to provide comments on the policies reflected in the bill. My name is Christopher Arnold, Mid-Atlantic Region Liaison at the United States Department of Defense State Liaison Office, here on behalf of my colleague, Melissa Willett, your New England Region Liaison, who is on maternity leave. While DoD has led the implementation of enterprise-wide guidance on prevention, states are addressing harmful behaviors such as sexual assault and domestic violence by expanding protections for victims. Legislation such as House Bill 5403 can supplement these federal program efforts and changes. The bill currently acknowledges military protective orders in a civilian context as a matter of practicality, efficiency, and protective urgency. Members of the military move frequently between states and can be deployed overseas. Our shared goal is to ensure that protective orders are recognized and enforced across all civilian jurisdictions, providing continuous protection to victims regardless of their location. The nature of military operations and the nature of military operations and living arrangements on military installations often require immediate action to ensure the safety of individuals. Commanding officers can issue MPOs swiftly in response to emerging threats without the delays inherent in civilian judicial processes, and this rapid response is crucial in preventing harm. Military commanding officers have unique understanding of the specific dynamics and risks associated with military life, including the chain of command, living and working conditions, and the potential for deployments. This specialized knowledge enables them to make informed decisions when issuing MPOs, all of which are entered into the National Crime Information Center database. Obtaining a civilian order requires the victim to navigate the civilian court system, which can be daunting, especially for those living on installations or in remote areas. Military families may not have easy access, and they may be unfamiliar with the specific practices and procedures in their new state. If every military-related case had to go through civilian courts, it would significantly burden the civilian legal system, potentially delaying protective measures for those in immediate danger. By creating a framework for military protective orders, Connecticut civilian courts and law enforcement can ultimately help us ensure that military resources are effectively used to address safety and disciplinary matters internally. The department perceives that rather than viewing this as a question of equivalency between military and civilian orders, we should see it as an opportunity for collaboration and support. And as I am here as a pinch hitter with the understanding that there may be some substitution on order and there's similar language before another committee, I'm happy to speak generally towards how states have implemented policies that specifically address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, yeah, this is also in judiciary. My question to you is, we have received testimony that states that the military protective orders, when initiated or by the commanding officer, that doesn't have the same due process as what would take place in our Connecticut judicial system, so that it wouldn't be that in order to carry out that quote unquote restraining order or military protective order, because there was not due process, that it really they testified against this. Can you opine on your feelings towards that?
Roger. So in terms of furnishing the opinion of the Department of Defense, we perceive there is an opportunity to harmonize protective measures and foster a seamless protective framework for victims. We all want to prevent situations where a victim is protected on a military installation, but vulnerable in the surrounding civilian community, or vice versa. Victims are currently not prevented from seeking a civilian order of protection. They may choose to pursue one in addition to an MPO. In some cases, obtaining a civilian order offers additional legal remedies not available through the military system and affords individuals subject to the MPO the opportunity to challenge the underlying order. There is a need for broader reforms that address the systemic issues and barriers service members face when navigating both the military and civilian legal systems, and the committee should consider how other states have considered MPOs as sufficient information for a court to find there is a clear and present danger of harm during an application for a protective order. States have also allowed our special victims counsels to file applications on behalf of victims with their consent to avoid them from having to, relive a traumatic incident. And states are also actively contemplating measures to ensure it is the duty of any peace officer to ascertain whether an MPO order registered in the database has been issued against any person subject to arrest for domestic abuse or sexual assault. So law enforcement can notify the agency who entered the MPO into the NICIC that there has been a violation. These are lawful command orders. They're not recognized in the state courts, and complainants must obtain a civil protection order. So there's a variety of ways that we can bring them jurisdictionally into Connecticut's framework. And the department looks forward to collaborating with the state to pursue a solution here.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Okay, Rep.
Thank you for coming before us. This is one of the bills that I believe are a strong priority for, I know, myself and a few others. And there's been a lot of testimony via telephone and via written, and I'm sure there'll be more testimony soon. But I really worry about the fact that there is a separation with the MPO and with civilian court. And as a retired now police officer, and trying to deal with situations that might have happened in the military, and then a victim coming out of a victim who was in the military coming out and not having that smooth transition in regards to, the concern of the case they might have went through, or for a reason for them to have to go through another plethora of information with the courts to continue any kind of order because they're not considered, the same. That is a concern for me. And as Senator Marks talked about, there has been some testimony from the general. And when he comes on later, I have a few questions in regards to, his testimony. But I really wanted to share that, that is a concern for me, along with a few other things. So I do appreciate the DOD coming forward with this and letting us know what some of the concerns were. And I look forward to having further conversation in regards to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. And of course, your leadership, the leadership of Representative Conley, Senator Marks have been invaluable in moving myriad issues to support our service members and their families as they serve in and transition into and out of the states forward, and making Connecticut one of the most military family-friendly states in the nation. And I'd like to highlight that the issuance of MPOs, while distinct from civilian orders in procedural aspects, are driven by a core objective shared by all protective orders, which is the safety and well-being of individuals facing serious threats. You can have circumstances where it's a service member and another service member, a service member and a member of their intimate family, service member and a civilian employee, or a contractor, or someone with a tenuous military nexus traversing the installation. In 2021, Secretary Austin ordered the Independent Review Commission on Sexual Assault in the Military to take bold action to address sexual assault and harassment in the force. The National Guard Bureau subsequently launched its own task force to look at sexual assault and suicide within the service, and their report specifically noted that the Federal National Guard Bureau does not possess the authority to regulate each state's National Guard, which can limit our ability to provide oversight and hold leaders and organizations accountable for prevention. The complex governing system of Title 10 and Title 32 authorities make prevention, oversight, and accountability highly convoluted, stalling necessary change and progress, which is where our state government partners come into play. So the committee should be contemplating allowing military legal authorities to file military protection orders with the civilian courts, and a process by which to give those whom the order is filed against the opportunity to be heard. Other states have facilitated victims obtaining civilian orders after an MPO is in place by requiring civilian law enforcement to notify military law enforcement or command when they respond to a violation. of an MPO or, providing a temporary order that provides some form of reciprocal protection until a civilian proceeding can be heard. So we look forward to coordinating with the Office of Military Affairs, the Military Department, and of course the members of the General Assembly to protect all residents of Connecticut from harmful behaviors.
And just for some clearer understanding, and the only reason why that I decided to push a little harder on this one is, being a veteran and being in the military and knowing some of the circumstances in which there is some domestic violence issues within the chain of command, and it's not something that's invisible. It may appear invisible because of the non-reporting or how it doesn't get the attention outside as in civilian life. But I just know that having peers and associates in the military, the number that I've witnessed, so I'm still concerned that when victims are about to leave or leaving the military, that there will not be substantial coverage or overlap where there could be a revisit of a situation that would just bring the person through some more examples of behaviors that they've been through. So thank you very much.
Roger that. And states can address harmful behaviors such as sexual assault, child abuse, and domestic violence by expanding protections for victims that ensure their privacy, safety, and serve to encourage reporting. For example, not making them, report something twice when they present to a civilian medical facility. So since the release of the Independent Review Commission report, numerous states have began, without duplicating effort, supplementing our significant federal program changes to protect service members and their families. How these approaches focus on addressing response and how quickly they are enacted is certainly up to the states. But the department eagerly anticipates Connecticut joining other states, including Illinois, Maine, Texas, and California, which have already taken action during this legislative session to address these critical issues.
Thank you. That was very informative, and I liked when you talked about the other states have done it. So we look forward to working with you to get this bill over the finish line. Thank you, sir. Next, we have Eileen DiGaetano. Eileen, are you on Zoom? Yep. Eileen, you just have to unmute, and if you don't mind turning on your camera, but you don't have to.
No, that's fine. Okay, we're good.
You are so good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Senator Marks, Representative Nolan, and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity today to testify. I submitted a written testimony, and I don't want to read that or really talk about that at length. If you have questions regarding the things that I've said there, I'm happy to answer them. But I really wanted to focus on and not repeat things that have already been said, because I agree with all of the things and that have been said in favor of Senate Bill 344. This bill provides a fiscally responsible, long-term solution to a problem that I think isn't as well known as it is experienced in the lives of people, for the reasons that were already stated, that when people get told you're not eligible, they walk away. And so today what I'd like to really do is, kind of address what I think is perhaps the thing that hasn't been talked about, and that is the barrier to moving the bill forward. The only thing that I saw over the years since I've brought this bill to the attention of Senator Formica and Representative McCarty is the comment from the Departments of Social Services regarding the Office of Fiscal Analysis, and the report that they made on the impact of what this bill would do. And so I'd like to read a portion of that. Their statement says, by reducing the income that is currently counted towards income limits, the bill increases the number of individuals. I'd like to change that word to the number of veterans. This bill isn't talking about everybody, it's talking about veterans. And I don't think there's anybody in the state of Connecticut who would look a veteran in the face and say, what this statement says, that you would be eligible for these things, but we have this barrier in our current policy. Then it goes on to list the types of DSS programs that individuals are impacted in their eligibility for. And they are every safety net service that anyone who's ever worked in social services, mental health, nursing, healthcare in any way has found that people who are the greatest resource that any state has all need to have their needs met. And these services, sometimes for the most fragile and the people who are not at the higher economic end, are critical for them to live and thrive in our state. And they are Medicaid, the Medicare Savings Program, state administered general assistance, the Connecticut Home Care Program for elders, Age to the Aged, blind and disabled, fuel and weatherization assistance. I've heard testimony from people in the community who've had their housing impacted by this, when their veterans benefits have been included as part of their income and they've lived in housing that is based, their rent is based on their income, and sometimes benefits don't come in a timely way and you get an increase and then you get your reevaluation and all of a sudden you have a back payment that you owe and now you can't afford the base to meet your basic needs in life. So what I'd like to bring to the attention of this committee is that there are benefits to passing it, economic benefits, and they are benefits that are far-reaching, far beyond the individual, who we all say we care for our veterans, or we wouldn't be sitting here today. So some of those policy changes would impact the amount of stress to family caregivers by ensuring that these people were not eliminated from access to supportive services. Caregiving is hard work, and statistics talk about the fact that veterans who have served in military, because of their service, have have a length of time where they will likely be needing care, and the types of care and support that they'll need over their lifetime are different. And in looking at what they've paid for our freedom, it is certainly, to me, unacceptable to create a barrier for them to have access that everybody else has access to because of the current policy. Before I was
Eileen, your time is up. If you could just summarize, please.
So, okay, well, basically there are economic advantages to providing the care to veterans, to eliminating this barrier. They even go into the workplace, looking at the statistics that happen for employers who have stressed out caregivers, the economic burden to employers, and this is a statistic from 2010, was $17.1 to $33.6 billion annually is the cost to businesses. And certainly, you know, these are the things that we don't see the ripple effect of when we stop something somewhere. What does it cost if we don't do this? And so to summarize it, I'd like to say that has never been discussed openly, or that information has never been shared. We've heard why we shouldn't do it because it's going to cost us money. But I'd like to say that I think that the benefits outweigh the costs, and certainly it's a fiscally wise thing to do, as well as a thing that we all feel is a moral obligation.
Thank you, Eileen, so much. And when we were talking about this bill, your name came up many times by many different people. So your advocacy for, I believe, like the last 10 years to try to get this bill passed is admired and it's not forgotten. As a visiting nurse, I said often people said, why would you want to run for office and be a senator? And I said, as a visiting nurse, I see how our public policy works. Sometimes it
Yes.
works fantastic and how it doesn't work. And one of those ways was the veterans who time and time again told me that they could not qualify for the home care program for elders because of their DVA benefits. And I think we have to pension. I mean, I think we have to always remember that the DVA pension, it's not their DOD pension. It's not the
Right.
pension that they get because they've served in the military for 20 years or more.
Right.
It's the pension that they get when they're 65 from the DVA because they're low income. The wealthy people aren't getting this money.
Yep.
So when the Office of Fiscal Analysis gives us their report saying, you know, we have certain number of veterans in Connecticut, so therefore it's going to cost us this much money, it's not true, because every veteran in Connecticut is not going to get this DVA pension, the aids and assistance, the homebound stipend, and the pension stipend. So
It's short-sighted.
yeah,
to-
so
to
it's
look at
very
it that way.
short-sighted. So, you know, we're going to try hard. I think it's going to, you know, we have to get it through the Senate, we have to get it through the House, but then it's getting the governor to sign it. So, it's a lot of work, but I feel because of your advocacy and not giving up. And I did go to the Wall of Honor before the meeting
Oh, thank you.
and paid, you know, honored your father. And
Thank
thank
you
you
for
so
that.
much for all you've done.
Well, you know, I thank you for taking this on, and I hope that it goes over the finish line now. There's a lot of people who will benefit, and including the state, that can feel like it's done the right thing. It's a win-win situation to pass this bill.
I agree. Rep. Delaney has a question.
Yep.
Thank you, Senator Marks. I just wanted to make a quick comment. I just wanted to thank you for your continued advocacy, your resilience, and for carrying on your father's legacy. After reading your testimony, I was taken aback. Thank you.
Thank you. I made him a promise.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Chair Nolan.
Eileen, I also want to thank you for your amazing advocacy to make sure that veterans are taken care of. And this is a huge cliff for us to step over to ensure that we give the support that is necessary for our veterans, especially as it pertains to benefits and income and how we need to make them separate so that they can get the services that they greatly need and that they should have. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate your advocacy. Have a nice day.
Thank you for those words.
So thank you, Eileen, for getting on Zoom and doing this. I grew up in Waterford and live in New London, so I hope we meet someday. We'll have a party when we get it passed.
Well, I look forward to that day, and I'm sure the veterans in Connecticut will be celebrating with us. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye for now.
And next we have Allison Weir. Is Allison here?
Good afternoon, Senator Marks
Oh,
and Representative Nolan, Senator Gordon, Representative Vale, and members of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. My name is Allison Weir. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Veterans Legal Center and a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. I'm here in support of the following bills: SB 344 with modification, HB 5402 with modification, SB 348, HB 5405, and I support in part and oppose in part HB 5403. I've submitted written testimony which discusses in more detail the types of benefits the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs provides and the retirement benefits under the Department of Defense. This information is important as I suspect that both SB 344 and HB 5402 as drafted do not fully reflect the intent of the bill's drafters. I fully support excluding non-service connected pension that the VA provides elderly or disabled indigent veterans from income calculation for the eligibility of state benefits. But as drafted, SB 344 does not quite achieve that result. I also support excluding VA benefits for service-connected disabilities and the retirement benefits for medically retired service members from the Department of Defense from such calculations. But again, HB 5402 doesn't, as drafted, does not quite limit its exclusion to these benefits, but would also instead include retirement of the retirement income of non-disabled veterans, for example, the 20-year veterans that Senator Marks has referred to before. I support 5405, although I would urge the committee to extend the study of personal property, extend the study to personal property tax as well as real property, as many permanently and just totally disabled veterans do not own real property, but may find the property taxes on the cars burdensome. I also support SB 348. It's time to remove the artificial distinction of service during time of war, as we learn more about the toxic exposure the service members have serving domestically have faced. The veterans of the Cold War are aging rapidly. For example, an 18-year-old enlisted, who enlisted in 1955 after the Korean conflict, but well before the Vietnam War, could have served 9 years on active duty and never served during a time of war. That 18-year-old enlistee would be 87 years old today. Likewise, a 20-year-old who enlisted in 1975 and served 15 years until 1990 would also not have served during a time of war. That 20-year-old would be 69 today. Both of these veterans may soon be, if not already are, in need of assistance. They might be eligible for non-service connected pension if they served during the time of war, but as the law is currently, they are not. Regarding HB 5403, I support the intention to protect victims of sexual assault and harassment, and applaud the provision to provide financial assistance to victims of military sexual assault and harassment when they are called to testify in hearings at courts martial. I caution, however, that equating a military protective order with equating a military protective order with civilian protective orders. Military protective orders are issued by commanders, not courts, and lack the basic principles of due process supported by civilian judicial proceedings. I realize my time is limited, but I'm here and available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Allison. And your testimony was excellent. I learned a lot about the bills that you wrote on you're a very good writer, very concise, and it was very easy to follow and understand. So I appreciate that. I know the difference between 344 and the other bill about excluding benefits. I'm just nervous. I just want to get one of them over the finish line. And I think by starting with just the DVA benefits as not counting towards.
And by that, I presume you mean the non-service connected pensions?
Yeah.
Yes.
The
yeah.
non-service pensions.
Yeah, I agree. That would be the best place to start off right off the bat. But you know, the folks who have, as was raised earlier in, I think I can't remember which senator it was, Kissel, I think, supporting the disability exemption. There's a good point to be made for that, but the non-service connected pensions are made to indigent veterans, and that really is probably the most pressing need for state assistance.
Well, yeah, and just to get those DVA benefits, you have to have, talking about the time in of service and war,
right?
You won't get any of those DVA benefits.
That's the other problem too.
The AIDS assistance or the homebound or the DVA. So yeah, there's a lot more we can do. And I really, really appreciate your testimony and your written testimony. And I know now who to go ask when I have legal questions about anything in the DVA, because you were great. Chair Nolan.
Thank you for coming before us with your testimony. We appreciate the time that you took to write up. Again, just to repeat what Senator Marks says, your testimony did give some eye-opening it helped us, would help us open our eyes a little bit in regards
Yeah,
to.
the VA and the military don't make things easy by using the same terms for different ideas.
I was gonna say that, but thank you. And, in regards to HB 5405,
And it's great to have the experience of lots of people who've gone through the rigor on this one. Thank you very much.
computer? Yeah. Are you still there, Allison?
I am. I'm sorry, so, Representative Nolan, I missed what you were saying.
Yeah, in regards to 5405, unfortunately, I have a typo in regards to that. Instead of that bill being a task force to study tax exemptions for certain permanent and totally disabled veterans, that bill should read, provide property tax exemption or further property tax exemption for veterans, period.
Oh, wonderful. That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
So,
I think that's something definitely worth studying. We are way behind on what we provide for veterans as compared to other states at this point.
yeah, and also, just so you know, there is a bill for the 100% disabled veterans that is going through finance. And, you know, that is, a big priority for many of us. So that bill should be getting a number through finance soon. And if you just keep coming back and checking in, we'll be able to tell you when a good day is to come and hopefully advocate for that bill.
Great. I'll keep my eye open for it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Our next person will be number 9, Mr. Collins, Randy Collins. Is he online? No. Say that again. No. Okay, we'll come back, see if he's here. Next person, number 10, would be Matthew Stillman. How are you, sir? Thank you, Mike.
Senator Marks, your predecessor, Senator Formica, for his advocacy on behalf of Senate Bill 44 and its 3440 and its predecessors over prior years. I also want to acknowledge Ms. De Gaetano, who testified virtually before, who I have worked with and am familiar with, who's a wonderful advocate for veterans on behalf of them and their families, who herself is a family member of someone who received non-service connected pension and had issues similar to this. I will not, along with her lines and Senator Kelly, I'm not going to turn around and read some prepared statement for you to reiterate things that you've already heard and you're aware of through other written legislation or other written support. I'm going to make some points and then I'll answer some questions regarding this particular issue. What we're talking about today in terms of DVA pensions and aid and attendance is a medical reimbursement. It is not income. I know people have used the term income before, but it is not. It is medical reimbursement for qualified medical expenses that have been reviewed by the Department of Veterans Affairs to keep individuals who have to live in a protective environment, who have a harm, physical or cognitive, that prevents them from, from proceeding. And they are utilizing their own life savings to pay for services to remain in the community. This is not for institutionalized individuals, Title 19 individuals whose benefit, if you're receiving this, once you go in an institution, gets reduced to $90 a month, which is agreed upon by the state and the Department of Veterans Affairs. These are benefits to keep people in the community. And they are people who need these services. To be qualified, to be eligible for these benefits, there are various eligibility requirements which are strictly construed by the Department of Veterans Affairs. These are very similar to the same requirements that are construed or required for eligibility by our own Department of Social Services, who addresses Medicaid here in Connecticut. First of all, they have to have wartime service. It's a veteran or a surviving spouse. Must be wartime service vets. My own mother-in-law had dementia, and my father-in-law was a member of the Presidential Honor Guard, but he did not serve during the appropriate period, so he and she weren't eligible for benefits under these programs. These veterans must have a need for medical care. Everyone who is of the appropriate age, over the age of 65, can't simply show up and say, hey, I want to get this stipend, because essentially you have to have a need for medical assistance. You have to have a need for protective services. The people who apply for these benefits have to have limited assets. Senator Marks, you previously referred to a number which is 151,000, which is generally the number that the Department of Veterans Affairs uses currently. But respectfully, what you didn't refer to is that 151,000 includes a calculation or an annual annuitization of one's income to get there. So essentially, if you have a veteran who makes $2,500 a month in income, then essentially his asset threshold is not 151,000, it's 121,000, because a part of the 151 is his calculation of $30,000 in income to get there. So the number for qualifying for this benefit is actually significantly lower than what it appears to be. Furthermore, the income that the people are earning from any other source, not this Department of Veterans Affairs, it is being spent on medical expenses. It's not being spent on rent. It's not being spent on food. It's not being spent on internet or phone or any kind of car expenses or taxes. These are expenses that are being expended solely on medical purposes. Caregivers, pharmacy bills, other expenses from pharmaceutical companies, things of that nature, doctor's bills, Medicare premiums. These are expenses that are being spent that they have to spend the money for solely for medical expenses. So think of someone who's merely making $2,500 a month, which politely is just not that much money in today's society, and they have to live at home, pay taxes, pay rent, pay utilities, pay phone or car bills. Then they have to pay their caregivers for whatever benefits they're not receiving. And all of a sudden, they're able to get this medical additional assistance, this reimbursement from the VA to help pay for some of that. It doesn't cover their full expenses. And all of a sudden, the state of Connecticut comes in and says, well, we're going to count that as income, regardless, by the way, that the Social Security and the IRS do not count it as income either. Not trying to be critical of them, but the point is these are funds that are needed to help keep these people in the community and out of facilities at institutionalization. Respectfully, I have a series of clients who obviously who've been addressed to this, but we had one couple who was in a protective environment and they needed this income to stay off Medicaid and to stay out of state roles. And we were able to get this benefit for them. The advantage, of course, was they're not on Title 19. They're not in a state program. The disadvantage, of course, is they have to be in a protective environment. But that's just one example that I'm sure myself and other attorneys who practice in this area have considerable numbers of. Anyway, so I don't want to drag on. I will just, again, ask for this committee and the legislature's support of this bill, and I will gladly answer any questions you may have.
Senator Martin.
Thank you so much for being here. So a couple questions. If federal law precludes counting medical reimbursement as income, why hasn't anybody sued the state of Connecticut for actually doing it?
Well, I can't speak for other people.
Well, I know, but
But
mean, has it ever happened? Has it been talked about?
I know that the problem with bringing a lawsuit against the state of Connecticut, particularly in federal court, is expensive. And these clients don't have the means to pay for those expenses. So that's one prevention from bringing these type of lawsuits. I know in other states, like Florida and New Jersey, people were bringing lawsuits and they went to district court and the judges looked at the state social services agencies and politely, they said to them, no, you're wrong here because federal regulations prevent counting medical reimbursement as income. We have not brought suits in the state of Connecticut. We were hoping that the legislature would see our way and pass legislation that would support it. But we have not brought lawsuits here in the state of Connecticut.
Okay, yeah, I think we're like only one of 4 or 5 states that still counts it.
Well, there's certifying regulations under Medicaid rules in this country, and there were SSI states, the states that follow Social Security rules, and then there were states that were allowed to set their own rules, which are known as 209B states, which originally were 11 states. Now they're only down to 5. Connecticut is one of those 5. So the states that follow Social Security rules and regulations on how they run their Medicaid programs, where SSA regulations, the POMs, say you cannot count medical reimbursement as income for benefits, those states essentially are not allowed to count it, plain and simple. So I hope
Thank
that
you.
answers your question.
Thank you for that. So you followed this bill for quite a few years, and so you've seen the fiscal note on
Yes,
it. I looked at the fiscal note from last night. And do you believe that that fiscal note is accurate?
I believe that I do not. I believe the fiscal notes regarding this bill are respectfully over aggressive in that they're basically they're trying to scare the legislature into saying it's going to cost the state of Connecticut money. There are very few people, in my opinion, of all the eligible veterans and their family members who are eligible for this program in Connecticut, because it is limited to people. It's going to only affect people whose income that comes in from this program is going to push them out of eligibility. If you make such a depreciated income, such a low income before you start receiving the aid and attendant stipend, basically, or the DVA pension with the aid, won't increase you beyond the eligibility. So that it doesn't apply to them. If you're making too much income from private retirement and private income and private pension, I have a gentleman who I met this week who makes, I think he and his wife as a household make $10,000 a month in retirement. He's a veteran with Vietnam service. He's not eligible for this because he and his wife and his household make too much income. So they're not going to qualify. So there's only a small range of veterans and their spouses who are eligible for this benefit that essentially this bill affects, that would push them out of the potential range as a barrier for service to get assistance from the state of Connecticut. That's why, respectfully to OFA and DSS and anyone who supports these fiscal notes, I don't think they're accurate. They accurately represent the true nature of the effect of the bill. Respectfully, as to what Senator Kelly said, though, penny wise, pound foolish is, I believe, the correct adage. He's a lawyer. Lawyers love adages. But that's a really great analysis here because, yes, under the state analysis, even if we save a few bucks here, you're really costing us in the fact that all these other seniors who would have been eligible for services, this benefit to stay in the community. Now, all of a sudden, where do you put them? You have to put them in state institutions. You have to put them in long-term care facilities. And when they're out of money, because again, they are depleting their assets to pay for their medical care, which is directly what these benefits offset. Now they're going to have no more money to stay in the community, and the state has to pick up their medical bill and their residency bill and through various programs. And it's costing us far more money than it would have cost us initially. So I do think the OFA analysis is off for that reason.
And so that's really keeping in line with what DSS wants to do by keeping our elderly in their homes to age at home, right?
Yes, ma'am. I've been an elder law attorney in Connecticut for probably close, God, I hate to say 20 years. That my hairline is, is going there. But I will tell you that quite a few years ago that the state of Connecticut had made the determination that it's far cheaper to keep about a third of the cost to keep people in their community, in their homes, than have them placed in an institution. And allowing this bill and the reimbursement to come to the clients, avoiding calculation, it prevents this barrier from services from being applied. And that's the point. If you want to keep people, they've created all these programs, Money Follow the Person and other things to get people back to the community. Allowing this bill to pass, allowing these benefits to be conferred will allow these people to stay in the community longer, thus avoiding state institutionalization and state payment for care.
So there is another bill that also talks about Representative Fonsella's bill. I can't remember the number of it. But that also includes the DOD pension. Which I would love to do all of it, but my thought is stick with this, just with the DVA, and let's pass the smaller one as opposed to the bigger one. Would you agree with that thought process?
Yes, I would. I haven't reviewed the bill or the facts behind it. I know that we have worked on similar legislation over years now, probably 10 years, 8 years. And that originally included that language and those benefits. And we've tried to tailor, I know this bill has tried to tailor the language for this DVA, non-service connected pension and healthcare benefits in an effort to get some work done, to get some passage. I'd love to if you're a veteran and you're disabled and you have a pension from the VA, I'd love to be able to say that person should be qualified. But at the very least, I think as even the gentlelady from the Connecticut Veterans Legal Center, the Lieutenant Colonel said, let's start somewhere. Let's start with this. All the benefits are great. The veterans deserve them. We owe it to them, but let's start somewhere first, and we'd like you to start here. I'm sorry, Senator.
And I thank you for that, because when you really understand it, it really just makes so much sense, and I think I'll be able to answer all those questions on the board.
Thank you, Senator.
Oops.
Representative Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. I would just say I agree with you. I've been listening to this now for 6 years. I never understood why it existed in the first place. Usually someone from DSS will come up and tell us why, we shouldn't. So I'm sure they influence some of that bureaucratic stuff that happens behind the scenes that limits us to be able to do stuff. But this should have been done a long time ago. It makes no sense. I don't think that's the intention of anything. And I think DSS interprets it the way they want to interpret, and that forcing us to have to take action legislatively. That's how I perceived this over the years. And again, I thank you for your advocacy. Again, I support this 100%, but I still support the other one as well. This one is more a more narrow scope. So for that reason, maybe it's a little, less of a financial burden, which I think is overplayed, like you said anyways, but I would still want to pursue all things that we could do when it comes to, veterans benefits. So I don't see why we can't do both, but I certainly, you would still support 5402. You just think that this may be lower hanging fruit, if I may, and that you would still support 5402 if we could do
Representative Vale,
both.
you're using an adage. It's terrific. You should have a law degree. Respectfully, I meant no intent to not support the other bill, but asking me, if I had to support one over the other, this is the one I support. And you're right. I think this is lower hanging fruit, to use a very simple analogy or analysis. It's almost, I think it should be evident. It should be obvious. And I support both, but this is my primary focus today.
Okay, I just wanted clarity, and I appreciate your
Apologize
testimony.
if there's any
No,
confusion with that.
it's good. I just for the record, thank you.
Thank you for coming before us. It is evident and obvious, just so you know. So hopefully, with your advocacy and others, we can bring this to fruition. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just checking, did Randy Collins come in? No. Okay, so number 11, Alex Ricciardone. Ricciardone. How are you, sir?
Well, yourself, sir?
Good.
Good afternoon, Chairs Marks, Nolan, Ranking Member Vale, and members of the Committee on Veterans and Military Affairs. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. After hearing the other testimony, I feel a little inadequate being up here testifying on this, because it's a very technical fix, almost like the gentleman spoke with the DSS interpretation, but I do appreciate you taking the time to hear my support. I'm here to support HB 05401. The proposed legislation is a common sense. It's a technical improvement to an otherwise very well-meaning law. What I'm here to talk about is Seamers and service members who served in the military, predominantly active duty, reserve, and National Guard. The issue is when you join CMERS or the state side of it, the MERS, you're able to buy in your service credits. They calculate that based on how many days of service that you had in the military. The problem that some folks are running into is that the comptroller's office is reviewing the law and says the only documentation that's acceptable to count under the statute is a DD 214. I don't need to explain what DD 214 is, but for any of those listening, the military typically only issues them if there's 90 days or more of active service. And that's why the comptroller's office says this is all we are going to acknowledge to buy their service. Now, the problem with that is many people in the National Guard and the reserves will serve 20 years, 30 years. They may never get 90 days or more of orders. They may do 30 days here. They may do 20 days here. They may do just weekends. That's 4 period. Technically, Saturday, Sunday would be 4 days. They do their 2 weeks a year. And so they may serve 10, 15 years, cumulatively get 4 or 5 years of actual service, but the comptroller's office won't allow them to buy that time. I think that's a huge injustice for those people who are serving, especially the last few years where the state has put hundreds of members on orders for 30, 40, 60 days for COVID responses. Some of those members were in the trenches with everybody else. And if they go to start state or municipal employment, they can't buy that time. The other part of it I want to highlight is there is no cost to any level of government. The service credit purchase, when it's purchased by an employee, is fully funded by that employee. I find it hard to see where this doesn't make clear sense at every level. And it just helps those people in the Guard and the Reserve to fully get credit and acknowledge their service when they served. I do want to thank Representative Poulos, who encouraged me to come out today and support this bill. We were speaking one day, I was talking to him about the frustration several people I knew had, and he encouraged me to push it forward. So I appreciate all of your time here today.
Thank you for coming before us today. We appreciate your advocacy for veterans. And I hope that, like others, this comes to fruition. Representative Poulos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first and foremost, thank you, Alex, for your service to our country and also your service to our town of Southington. I greatly appreciate that. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. If this technical adjustment were to happen, would there be a cost to the state of Connecticut at all or to the town of Southington?
There wouldn't be. It's a great question. The way it works procedurally is when an employee starts and enters the retirement system, there's a period of time where they work for a year and then they file paperwork with the comptroller's office to get their employment history, their salary, and they submit their evidence of service. Then the comptroller's office sends an actual invoice to the employee and says, here's the bill. You can pay it if you want it. You don't have to pay it. But the towns don't kick out any money, and the state government isn't on the hook at all. And I would be remiss, I'm actually here testifying on behalf of the Southington Veterans Committee as well. They fully support this.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you. So if you are, if you just, 30 days, then 30 days, then 30 days, that doesn't count, they don't add up all the days. And you
Correct.
have to have 90 days to get the DD 214, is that what it is?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Do you know what if other states do this, or are we?
I can't talk about other states, but I did check with the federal government. So if they let you double dip there as well, and you can, so if you were a National Guard member for 5 years and then went to the federal GS service, they allow you to buy back every inactive UTA, inactive duty drill period. They don't require the 214. They just require a service history that just delineates every single day you've ever worked.
Okay. thank you. I'm glad you came and testified because hearing it is different than sometimes reading it. Thank you very
I
much, sir.
appreciate you having me here. Thank you very
Yep.
much.
Representative Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming by to give your testimony today. You're a member of the National Guard or the Reserves?
I was in the reserves recently. I just switched over to the 143rd at Quonset Point, Rhode Island.
What is your rank in MOS?
I'm a JAG. I'm a major.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And I just want to make sure that I have it correctly. So you could serve 20 years in the Guard or Reserve, and under the current framework, you would not be able to buy back 1 day of the service going to the comptroller's office. Is that?
It's a possibility. It depends. For officers who go in, if they don't have 90 days of, call it basic training, they wouldn't get a 214. Most enlisted programs, I only know Air Force. I don't know how the enlisted works everywhere else. But if the enlisted basic training doesn't hit 90 days or their tech school doesn't hit 90 days, they wouldn't get the 214 either, with the Air Force works.
Roger that, Major. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Cool.
Thank you, Representative Delaney. I've lost my thought, so I'm just going to say thank you for coming and being before us, and I'll come to you as soon as I remember what I was going to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Representative Anderson.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it your understanding of the bill as written, it allows you to count inactive duty like drill weekends towards a buyback?
I'm comfortable with it because the proposal talks about what documentation is acceptable. Right now, the way it's written, it talks about 90 days of cumulative service, and the comptroller's office has stated that that is 90 days. That's a 214. The language that's imposed in there talks about a 214 or other documentation. That's official DoD documentation and signed off by a commanding officer. So if one was to print out a duty summary and it had everything there, and there was an affidavit signed off by that commanding officer, it's very clear by the proposed change that it has to be accepted.
I'm still a little foggy, but I'm a retired federal employee and a retired reservist. I bought back my active duty, but it didn't allow me to buy back drill time, which I don't agree with. So I hope we're clear on the final version of the bill. You know, we got to separate the active and the inactive, at least in my opinion, but thank you.
And I will reach out to the comptroller's office just to make sure that they're comfortable with that interpretation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Coming before us. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Number 12, Mark Noddy. Did I say that right, Mark?
Mark Natty,
Natty.
just like the last four, Cincinnati, pronounced the same way.
Welcome, sir. You have the floor.
Okay, good afternoon, Senator Marks, Representative Nolan, Representative Vale left, and all the distinguished members on the Committee on Veterans and Military Affairs. My name is Mark Natty. I live in Meriden, Connecticut. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, from 1981 to 1985, and I've been working over at Pratt Whitney 1 month after I got out till presently. Usually I speak over in the labor area, but I am a veteran and I thought I'd speak on this. While I am not disabled, I served with many of my Marine Corps brothers that are. This legislation will help them keep or be part of the American dream of home ownership in this state alive and well. These veterans have given their body and their health to protect our way of life, but here in Connecticut, the disabled veteran are being taxed out of the American dream, that dream that they've fought so hard to protect. In this state, the average property tax burden is $7,671. per year, which is well over 600 a month. If that's coming out of a disability check, that doesn't leave much left over. Puts home ownership out of the reach of many of the disabled veterans. These are the same veterans that have given us the freedoms we all enjoy today. I believe we should waive the property tax, make it exempt for these heroes that have given so much that they are now disabled veterans. This money would go right back into the economy and increase the quality of their life greatly. I hope you will show support for the disabled veterans with support of House Bill 5405. And if you choose not to support this bill, I think you're sending a message that if you want the American dream of home ownership, you must go to a state where property taxes are more affordable or nil for the disabled veteran. That's all I got to say today. I urge you all to support and keep our American heroes in the great state of Connecticut.
Thank you, Mark, for coming before us. Just so you know that the bill for property tax is in finance. It has my full support. I can tell you it has many members up here full support. Hopefully, as soon as it gets a bill number, you will see the committee co-sign the bill to support it and then share it with others to support it also. I thank you for coming before us because what you said is accurate in regards to the payback that we need to give our 100% disabled veterans for their service, for going away to protect us and coming back and having changed lives because of some of their disabilities. So I really thank you for coming before us.
Thank you. And they absolutely deserve it.
Yes. Anyone else have anything to say in regards to that? No? Rep. Delaney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Natty, I just want to start off by thanking you for your service, and for the record, one of the intent of the committee is going to be to make sure that this bill ends up becoming a study to examine property tax benefits for all veterans. Once we hopefully secure property tax benefits for 100% disabled veterans. But thank you for your service and for your continued advocacy, sir.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you.
And next up will be number 13, John DeSantis. Welcome. Thank you. From New London, one of the best communities in Connecticut. You have the floor, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Armed Forces Committee for Veterans, I want to thank the Senators, State Representative Nolan, State Senator Martha Marks, State Senator Kathy Olston, and State Representative Holly Cheeseman for giving me information, and also a very good thanks to Brianna for helping me get a ride here and a few other things from the parking lot. I'm here today to testify about Bill 5405. Are they going to change this number? Yes. They are going to change this number. Would you let me know what it is when you get time? Which states the bill is to be given to veterans who are 100% disabled, which I am, the tax waiver of property tax on their primary home in Connecticut. The day the bill is passed, veterans will pay no more property taxes on their primary home. Veterans have served their country honorably in war zones, which I have. I was in 10 offensive, 67, 68. If anybody here in the military knows what that is, that was the worst time to be in Vietnam, to say the least. We asked the bill be passed so we can enjoy our home, our children, and our grandchildren, and what we fought for. The following states have been exemptions in the same taxation, which I just found out through another veteran who was here to testify today also. The following states have this bill already in place for no taxes for their veterans who are 100% disabled. Alabama, Arkansas, California, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. There are approximately 1,203 disabled 100 veterans who own homes in Connecticut who are 100% disabled. That what this would apply to. We do not need a study in regards to that, because I have this information both from the VA and from Kathy Olston, who was very instrumental of giving me the statistics. 3,800 100% disabled vets in Connecticut. 4 years ago, there was 1,800 owned homes this would apply to. This now only applies to approximately 1,203 veterans, which is not a big cost of no more than $5.2 million to the state of Connecticut to reimburse, or however they're going to get it passed. These veterans who are 100%, most of them are all Vietnam era like I am. We'd like to be able to live long enough to enjoy this and be given this opportunity to enjoy our life, our health, what we have left, our family and our children, our grandchildren. Thank you very much for letting me testify in this matter.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming before us. I mean, you just spoke 100% of the reasons why we should support and fight for this bill that's going to be in finance to come to fruition. For so long, you know, veterans have given us and put us in a position to be able to do what we're doing today. And for us not to pay them back in such matter is, I just don't think that that's really decent of us. So I'm glad to be an advocate for this bill, and I'm glad to try and push it very hard along with colleagues to make sure it comes to fruition. I do ask that if you have not, that you also do testimony for the Finance Committee so that we can make sure that they understand how much this needs to happen. So thank you very much. And Senator Marks.
Thank you, Chair Nolan. Welcome. Good to see you. You have your two new London friends here
A lot of
listening.
emails,
Huh?
a lot of emails to get here.
A lot of emails. So I just want to tell you that the first public hearing that Finance had was yesterday, and it was not on that agenda. So Brianna will keep track of it, and now you know where to park, and she'll make sure you get up to your room where it has to testify, and really get as many veterans as possible to come testify at that Finance Committee meeting is the way you get momentum and you get them to listen.
But there's a problem.
What's
There's no communication set up through the entire state of Connecticut for all the veteran organizations to be notified. I had just happened to keep on hounding to find out a day to come up here. And when I got that information in the email the next day, I got somebody to get me online to come up here and speak to be registered. You got 16 people here coming. You know how many veterans there are in Connecticut? Hundreds of thousands. That shows me there's no communication that I asked the commander of the VFW to do something about last year, to notify all the veteran organizations, so all the people could come here and stuff it in, so you guys would get it through your thick heads. We just want what we deserve, what we fought for. If you haven't been in a combat zone and have somebody try to kill you every day, you don't know what it's about.
So we can reach out to Diane Nadu, who runs the Wyndham coffee house. What's it called? She speaks to a lot of veterans, and we can reach out to the rally point in Norwich. I mean, we can try to get more veterans than just one or two by reaching out to them. That's what we can do. And I think if you talk to a few veterans and then they talk to a
talked to a
few
lot of them.
veterans.
They wish there was just one site in the state to go on to let them know way in advance to have enough time. If they don't have a computer or somebody does, they have to get somebody over. It's difficult for a lot of people that can't afford a computer. A lot of veterans I know that are all Vietnam vets, they'd love to have this taxation done. They'll be able to afford to live here and not have to move and leave their families, children, grandchildren, and their children.
I know. We have talked with some of the coffee houses about getting like a bus load to, easier if a bus could drive everybody up here. So I hear you. And we'll try to do better, but we will let you know. Brianna will be in touch with you and we'll make sure you get up here. Okay.
So just so you know I myself have been in contact with at least 25 organizations. Unfortunately, the scheduling in regards to them being able to make it up here was not, they weren't able to do that. I will continue to reach out to them via email, social network, and try and, provide a little bit more marketing for that. But, it's a priority, and we will try and push further to get out the request for people to come and have that.
You think all the state representatives who represent every single town in Connecticut could put up on a bulletin board in their town or their state employee, state appointed volunteer to have a bulletin board so all veterans in each town could look at that bulletin board and know?
And just so you know, in other bills, we are trying to make sure that that happens. So just so you know, that is something that has been discussed this year, and there's money we're trying to get for the DVA to do that in regards to marketing. And also with the local newspapers and with a few other avenues that they have in mind to make sure that we do get enough things out for veterans to know that either that we're fighting for stuff or the events that are happening.
I've been a service officer for 4 veteran organizations, VVA, DAV, and Vets in the VFW. If you're living in London, you give me any information, I can pass it on to these 4 organizations.
Mhm.
I've been trying to go to the state meetings where you're supposed to be a commander to go, just to listen to what's going on. And I've spoken to a lobbyist that doesn't know what I know.
Yeah.
How can you be a lobbyist for the state and go to Washington DC and not even know what bills are being brought up in Connecticut?
Mhm.
Something's missing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Quite a few of the organizations, also when I put out social network stuff, I do tag them in it so that they can see it. And I know that goes for some of the New London organizations also. So they're tagged in it to notify them. But can I make more calls to them? Yes. So any other questions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, up next will be Guy Fatone. Hello there.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Excuse me?
Good to see you.
Good to see you again. I would like to thank the committee for taking the time to support the bills, but I'm here for the 5404 bill, which is, from what I understand, going to finance. So I would like to secede my 3 minutes to next in line. If that'll be okay with everyone.
Just have to say that you are from Niantic, so from the best Senate district in all of Connecticut.
That's
So
right.
thank you, Guy. Thank you, Mr. Fatone, for being here.
Thank you, and all members on the committee.
And that would be you, Miss Heidi Cornell. Thank you for coming before us today.
Well, and with your clarification on House Bill 5405, I will adjust my my testimony, but
Well,
good afternoon.
Feel free to speak on it anyway.
Okay, well, I will tell you, I have testified before you many times now for the past 5 years since I moved back to Connecticut. And I'm very much hoping that this is the year that we can pass a law exempting 100% permanently and totally disabled veterans from property taxes in Connecticut. And I also do support the bill to do a study for all veterans because, as I think you know, our exemptions for veterans on property taxes have not been updated for years, many years, decades. So over the past years, though, more and more states, as John mentioned, have been enacting such a law. So we have currently 20 other states exempting their 100% disabled veterans from property taxes on their primary home. As far as our 100% permanent and total disabled veterans, we have actually Legislative Research Office here in Connecticut produced some data. So we have 1,209 100% permanently and totally disabled veterans here. We also know where they live. So I took the data and calculated the cost of such a bill just for that group, looked at the where the veterans are, what municipality they're in, the average home value in those municipalities, their mill rates. What I came up with was a total cost at the most of $4.8 million for the state of Connecticut. And that's assuming that these veterans have a home that's the same value as the average Connecticut resident, and they own homes at the same rate as the average Connecticut resident. I would suspect the values are lower and the rates are lower. So that 4.8 million is a maximum. And then if you were to calculate that out by municipality, we're talking 29,000 per. You could split it between the state and the municipalities, just whatever we need to do. So, you know, I'm happy to submit. I've submitted my spreadsheets and calculations and sources to several members. I'm happy to submit whatever I can to you to help push this bill. I will tell you that I've served with these men and women. I go to the VA hospitals, I see them, and a lot of them, as John was saying, don't have the resources, they don't have the ability or even the technical knowledge to call in or come in and fight for this. So I feel like we need to fight for them as they did for us, and all the sacrifices that they made. So in summary, I support House Bill 5405, and I would really like to do whatever we can to push this other bill. And again, I've tried reaching out to veterans to get more to come out and testify. It's a hard nut to crack to get to find them that can come out here. So anything I can do, I will. But I thank you for your time, your consideration, and your service to the state of Connecticut and its veterans.
I thank you very much, and you were very accurate on your numbers. So I think, you know, though the number is around 4.8, I really believe it will be less than that.
I do too.
Because those that don't have homes, I think, are going to kind of drop the number by at least a few hundred because of the places that some of our veterans are residing in that I know of. And I'm actually just a little bit more excited because I know it's going to drop without a doubt. So I'm looking forward to making sure that more people understand that and that we get more people out here too.
I did notice when looking at the data that the places that had the greatest numbers of veterans also had nursing homes where those veterans would be living. So it looked very much like those were not pockets of homeowners.
Yeah. Senator Marks?
Thank you, Heidi, for advocating. Are you a vet? Are you
Yes,
a
ma'am.
veteran?
Yes,
Okay.
23 years in the Air Force.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for advocating and for doing all that hard work. So
My pleasure.
Thank you, Heidi.
All right, hopefully I'll be back to speak to the Finance Committee.
Yes, yeah. And before you leave, if you don't mind, Ariana is right there. If we don't have your phone number, can you give it to her for me, please? And we'll share it. Joe, we just had two other people that wanted to talk. I'm just gonna have them come up to the mic. Dave, did you want to come up and talk on anything? All right.
I had a meeting to meet.
Yep,
with you
I know that, but I didn't know
Okay.
if you wanted to say a
Oh,
few words.
Well, I appreciate everything that the committee is doing. It's great to actually come out here today. So I've only been in the room now for about 10 minutes, but I'm liking what I'm hearing and so what the discussions are. So thank you very much for what you're doing here, and looking forward, I hope to work together with all of you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. All right, everyone, that's it. Thank you for coming, and we'll be in touch soon.